This one's a really interesting fight for the female weight classes. Randa Markos, that's a tried, tested, and true type of fighter. Looking back on her career, fellow Canadian, so I got a bit of a soft corner for her, and I followed her career quite well. She's just got such an interesting, path and UFC career because just to take you guys down a trip down, old man UFC memory lane, she competed on an Ultimate Fighter where she actually got pretty far and ended up facing Rose Namajunas, who lost the fight, or sorry, who won the fight against Randa Markos and goes on to fight for the title and loses the inaugural UFC Strawweight Championship. Now, funny enough, that fight was against Carla Esparza, who became the first UFC champion of that division. Now, Randa Markos goes on to beat Carla Esparza down the line, including fighters like Angela Hill, which I think is a big deal. But, when you think about it like that, loses to Rose Namajunas, in the fight leading up to the title. Rose loses to Carla Esparza, but down the line, Carla Esparza lost to Randa Markos. So Randa Markos was basically a semifinal away from potentially being the inaugural strawweight champion of the UFC. So, Randa Markos has a very storied UFC career. If you're into women's MMA, like that's a fighter whose, record is very worth taking the time to get to know because I think that she's paved the way quite a bit, not only for Canadian fighters, but just female fighters in general. And it's she's fun to watch. She's had the grappling that's kept her in, the top of the heap for so many years. But yeah, I think there's a very real switch in athleticism, overall ability, especially as strikers. I think that you're seeing a very difference in what women are bringing to the table from just real athleticism in terms of just striking games. Rose Namajunas, like I know we talk about it like martial arts, but these are athletes, right? That Rose Namajunas kick is very athletic. The mentality, the timing, the body, physical aspects that go into landing a kick like that. It's just insane to think how hard that is and just how much striking is taking over the female weight classes. And I think, Joanna Jędrzejczyk deserves a lot of credit for what she brought because from a technical perspective, even though she takes a lot of damage, I think that she was one that burst onto the scene and just really started stomping the yard and letting women know that, yeah, this is a new era and it's about time you get your striking game intact. So when you look at Randa Markos, Amanda Ribas, Murata Kanako, Mackenzie Dern, these are the losses she's taking. So, competition is just in general very tough. And she's obviously, at the tail end per se of her career and taking on some of the better fighters that she needs to. And I'm excited to see what she does here, trading out with Travis Lutter and Kevin Holland, having a good time in Texas. I think this is a great camp for her. She looks in phenomenal shape. So I think that this is going to be one of those fights where she's severely, undervalued, just probably from a betting perspective and just from, an experience perspective, because Luana Pinheiro is one of those fighters where I want to fall in love with her so badly. She's beautiful. She's deadly. It's like these perfect things that just line up for all of us, MMA fans and lovers of combat sports. But at the same time, it's like you go look at the one loss, and it's almost like she has this way of fighting where it's blitz, hooks. And then, even if she doesn't land the big knockouts or the big, blows right away, she's able to work in this, world-class judo. She comes from a long line of judo practitioners and is able to get submissions galore. So, she took that loss and right after that just rips off, 6 first-round finishes dating back to 2017. Like, she's no joke. And so for me, it's one of those things where I think we just talk about it, right? How many fights we've talked about the game plans where, if you're able to withstand some of these blitzkriegs of some of these fighters who are just so exciting in the first round, it's really interesting what the second and third rounds can look like. So for me, Randa Markos being the fighter who she is, taking on some of the fighters that she has, I mean, in retrospect, the wrestling really messed her up in some of her last fights. I think that she's just a true grappler in the grand scheme of things, but has to be able to avoid being taken down where she's just completely on the bottom by good wrestlers or good strikers up against the fence because she's going to take damage. And in this case, it's like, we saw Penne, for example. Penne snuck out a really interesting victory. Lupi probably should have won that fight in a lot of people's eyes. And I think that, that was a classic case of where maybe some of the judges really appreciated some of the grappling work and keeping it in close and just making her power bomber all over the place. But that's what I'm kind of saying. I think that, if you have to, have a fight to compare this to, it's a great one to compare it to, because, Luana's one loss is against a fighter who was able to withstand the first round barrage. And after that, the punches just became easier and easier and easier to see. So for me, it's like, if you're just able to avoid those early barrages, I don't even want to say if this is like the biggest, underdog or favorite on here, but I feel like it has to be one of them. And I just think that it's because of the recency bias that we see with MMA betting in general. But, let's take a quick look right now. Yeah, I mean, open at a minus 181. Some place got it down to minus 160, but minus 175, minus 188. Some places, I mean, Randa Markos coming out at plus 164 opening, down to plus 140, plus 150. I mean, I think there's value there. I think that Luana has very good skills. I mean, I would have expected this line to be a bit higher, so I'm not saying there's crazy good value. I think that there's an opportunity for Randa to be able to withstand some of the early round damage that we've seen from Luana. But at the same time, I think that's a harder task to just, be able to just say you can do it and not come through, because at the end of the day, she's been successful in the last 6 times she's done it. And there is tape to suggest that this is still doable. So obviously, Luana's going to get a lot better, but Randa's been working out like a dog, and it looks like this is going to be a phenomenal fight to end off the prelims and kick off the main card, and I can't wait.